At the very beginning of the story, we are introduced to the main character Minsu and her younger sister Yansu, who works as a child actress. Yansu's life revolves around constant filming schedules, and her mother is deeply focused on managing her career. One day, their mother is busy preparing Yansu for a shoot and tells Minsu that she must accompany her sister. Minsu is clearly reluctant because she had already planned to meet her boyfriend SG, but her mother refuses to let her go anywhere else. Left with no choice, Minsu decides to secretly contact her boyfriend using Yansu's phone and asks him to meet her at the mall where the shoot is taking place. Minsu then asks her mother for her own phone, but her request is denied. Her mother insists that she doesn't need one, while Yansu is allowed to have a phone because of her work commitments. This small moment highlights the imbalance in attention between the two sisters. At the filming location, Yansu gets ready while Minsu anxiously waits for a message. Soon she receives a text from her boyfriend saying he has arrived. Without wasting time, Minsu tells Yansu she will be back shortly and heads upstairs to meet him. While standing in front of a glass door, she casually applies lipstick. Suddenly, she hears strange sounds. At first, she looks around in confusion, but within seconds, everything begins to shake violently. An earthquake has struck. Below, Yansu calls out to her sister, urging her to come down quickly. But Minsu is frozen in place, watching in horror as the building begins to collapse around them. Dust, noise, and chaos fill the air. In the middle of the destruction, she sees Yansu waving at her, and then in an instant, her sister disappears. The scene abruptly shifts, revealing that this terrifying moment was actually a dream. Minsu wakes up shaken but tries to calm herself, telling herself that not every dream becomes reality. Elsewhere, we are introduced to the male lead Lee Kang at a construction site where workers are on strike. They refuse to continue working because they haven't been paid for their previous labor. Lee Kang stands among them, demanding fair wages for everyone. When the manager arrives, he tries to intimidate them, even slapping Lee Kang and insulting him by calling him a beggar. This sparks a confrontation. Lee Kang fights back, refusing to accept the insult and firmly declaring that none of them are beggars, they are workers who deserve respect. Meanwhile, Minsu works as someone who creates architectural models and designs. She is shown carefully drawing building plans while her mother sleeps nearby, exhausted after drinking heavily the previous night. When a client arrives, Minsu wakes her mother, but seeing her condition makes Minsu quietly sad. It becomes clear that her family life is far from stable. On the other side, Lee Kang spends time with his friend Sang Man. He receives a call and prepares to leave for an unknown task. Sang Man warns him not to go, sensing danger, but Lee Kang ignores him. Although Sang Man wants to follow, Lee Kang insists he return home because his family needs him. Later, Minsu meets her boss to discuss a design project. She points out that the blueprint provided is unsafe and could lead to a structural collapse. However, her boss dismisses her concerns, saying the client wants the design exactly as it is. Minsu refuses to compromise on safety and insists she will only proceed if given a proper and accurate blueprint. Soon after, a man named Juwon sees Minsu's work and is impressed by her skills. Her boss informs her that she has been chosen to work on Juwon's project. At the same time, Lee Kang is given a dangerous assignment by a woman named Mary. She tells him about a girl who was abused by a powerful director and asks him to pose as her brother to demand compensation. While looking at the director's card, Lee Kang is suddenly reminded of a painful memory. As a child, he had once been waiting in a mall while his father worked nearby. He was eating ice cream when an earthquake struck, causing the building to collapse. In the chaos, he heard someone crying out for help, but the memory cuts off there. Back in the present, Lee Kang confronts the director and demands compensation. The situation quickly turns aggressive, with Lee Kang threatening him to ensure justice is served. At the same time, Minsu visits the company to meet Juwon regarding her project. She's asked to deliver a design sample to him on a higher floor. Refusing to take the elevator, she climbs the stairs, eventually becoming exhausted. On her way, she accidentally bumps into Lee Kang and nearly falls, grabbing onto him for support. The moment is brief and awkward. Lee Kang makes a sarcastic comment, and Minsu quickly steps away, embarrassed. After meeting Juwon and completing her task, she returns home, only to find her mother missing. Worried, she searches for her and eventually finds her drunk and arguing with someone on the street. Minsu brings her home, urging her to forget the past. But her mother breaks down, saying she cannot forget Yansu, whose death she believes was her fault. This reveals the tragic truth: the earlier dream was actually a memory. The building collapse had really happened and Yansu had died in that disaster. In a flashback, we see Minsu injured in a hospital, her parents desperately asking about Yansu. When she says she doesn't know, her mother blames her while her father defends her, saying her survival itself is a miracle. In the present, Minsu rejects the idea of miracles, believing that whatever is meant to happen will happen. She later visits her father, who runs a small restaurant. He cooks noodles for her and she reminds him that it is Yansu's birthday, wishing he had come home. Meanwhile, Lee Kang is haunted by his own memories of the collapse. He dreams of people being rescued and recalls seeing someone trapped under the debris. The trauma continues to affect him deeply. One day, after getting into another fight, Lee Kang is left injured and unconscious on the street. Minsu happens to find him and takes him to her father's place. They treat his wounds and take care of him. When he wakes up, he is surprised by their kindness. Later at work, Minsu hears colleagues discussing the mall disaster and its reconstruction. They mention the number of victims, but Minsu points out that it's not just about numbers. Each person represented an entire family that suffered. Her words leave a strong impression on Juwon. When she sees the list of victims, she finds Yansu's name and becomes emotional. At the same time, Lee Kang visits the construction site of the rebuilt mall and sees a memorial dedicated to those who died. That night, he destroys the monument in anger, unable to accept the past. A flashback reveals that during the disaster, Lee Kang had seen Minsu just moments before the collapse. They had briefly made eye contact through the glass door before everything fell apart. This connection hints at how their lives were unknowingly tied together from that moment. In the present, the broken monument causes concern among the workers. Suspicion arises about who might have done it. Meanwhile, Lee Kang visits Minsu's father's restaurant again, curious about the girl who helped him, but he doesn't get a clear answer. Eventually, suspicion falls on Lee Kang when his background is reviewed, setting the stage for further conflict as the story continues to unfold. During a quiet night, Minsu continues working late, focused on her tasks. Feeling thirsty, she steps out to get some water, but quickly notices that the house feels unusually silent. Her mother is nowhere to be seen. A sense of unease creeps over her and she begins searching around the house. When she finally reaches the bathroom area, she's horrified to find her mother lying unconscious in the bathtub outside. Panic fills her as she rushes to bring her mother inside and tries to wake her. As her mother slowly regains consciousness, Minsu is overwhelmed with fear and anger. She immediately assumes that her mother, after drinking heavily again, may have tried to harm herself. In a burst of emotion, Minsu starts throwing away all the bottles of alcohol she can find. Her mother tries to stop her, but Minsu doesn't hold back. She demands that if her mother ever thinks about doing something like that again, she should tell her first. Her voice trembles as she admits how terrified she is of losing her too. She begs her mother to promise that she will stop drinking, revealing just how fragile their relationship has become after everything they have already endured. Later, while waiting at a bus stop, Minsu encounters Lee Kang. He casually approaches her and asks if she works nearby. She answers briefly, confirming that she does. He mentions that he also works in the same area, trying to continue the conversation. Then, looking at the name of the bus stop, he comments that it feels strange. When Minsu asks what he means, he explains that the name still refers to a mall that no longer exists, hinting at the tragedy that once happened there. His words carry an unspoken weight. When the bus arrives, Minsu boards it and surprisingly Lee Kang follows her. He continues trailing her all the way to her workplace as if curious about her life. At the office, Juwon confronts Minsu, telling her that if she is uncomfortable working on the mall reconstruction project, she is free to quit. However, Minsu firmly refuses. Despite her painful past connected to that place, she chooses to stay and continue working on the project. The following day, Minsu hands some documents to her father and suddenly asks him a serious question about his relationship with her mother. She wants to know why he is considering divorce and whether he plans to marry someone else. Her father denies having any such intention but admits that he no longer wishes to remain in that strained relationship. Minsu insists that he should talk things through with her mother instead of giving up. Unbeknownst to her, Lee Kang overhears this conversation and assumes she is their daughter, gaining a small glimpse into her personal struggles. While walking home later, Minsu is suddenly in danger as a motorbike speeds toward her while she's crossing the road. In a split second, Lee Kang rushes forward and pushes her out of harm's way. The sudden action causes the motorbike to lose balance and fall. Instead of focusing on herself, Minsu immediately goes to check on the injured rider and asks Lee Kang to help. He lifts the bike but scolds the rider harshly for driving recklessly without a helmet, even threatening to call the police. Minsu calms the situation, helping the rider get back on his feet. Soon after, Juwon calls Lee Kang to his office. With a serious tone, he confronts him about the destroyed memorial at the construction site. Although Lee Kang initially denies it, Ju-won reveals that he has proof. He explains that the monument was expensive and that Lee Kang could face legal consequences. However, instead of reporting him, Ju-won offers a deal. In exchange for keeping the incident a secret, he wants Lee Kang to monitor everything happening at the construction site and report any suspicious activity. Though confused about the request, Lee Kang eventually agrees. At the office cafeteria, Lee Kang approaches Min-soo and tells her that he will now be working there as well. Their conversation turns slightly philosophical when Min-soo advises him to trust people and be willing to help others. Lee Kang, however, responds with a much colder perspective. He insists that trusting others is pointless and that a person should rely only on themselves. As he looks at her, memories of the past resurface. He recalls being trapped under the rubble during the mall collapse, calling out for help while rescuers saved someone else instead. That someone, though he doesn't say it directly, was Min-soo. Back in the present, he tells her bluntly that when it comes to survival, people tend to prioritize themselves above all else. His words reveal the deep scars left by his past. Meanwhile, Ju-won assigns Min-soo more responsibilities for the project and tells her she can consult the site manager if needed. When she asks for the manager's name, she later discovers that it is none other than Lee Kang. This realization frustrates her because she had been trying to keep her distance from him, yet now they are forced to work closely together. One day, Min-soo accompanies her friend Shin to the hospital. After the checkup, she struggles to get Shin's wheelchair into a taxi because it gets stuck. At that moment, Lee Kang appears and offers to help. With Shin's permission, he lifts her and gently places her inside the taxi. He then tells Min-soo to accompany her friend. Shortly after, Lee Kang's sister appears and Min-soo politely greets her before leaving. Back at work, Min-soo learns from a colleague that Ju-won's former fiancé, Hee-jun, who is also a director at the company, has returned. Their engagement had ended in the past, but now she is back and will be working on the same project. This adds a new layer of tension. Later, Min-soo spots Ju-won and Hee-jun together in a parking area, confirming the rumors. The next day at the construction site, Min-soo notices Hee-jun again. While inspecting the water system and taking notes, a sudden gust of wind scatters her papers. As she tries to catch them, she accidentally slips and falls into a large water tank. The tank is deep and isolated, and there are no workers nearby to hear her calls for help. Exhausted and frightened, she eventually sits down, feeling helpless. Meanwhile, Lee Kang notices her absence and begins searching for her. When he finds her belongings near the tank, he realizes something is wrong. Looking inside, he spots Min-soo trapped below. Without hesitation, he pulls her out. Instead of showing relief, he reacts with frustration, questioning why she didn't scream louder and accusing her of acting carelessly. Min-soo defends herself, reminding him that he was the one who told her not to trust anyone. As rain begins to fall, Lee Kang notices that she is completely soaked and silently hands her his jacket. She thanks him sincerely, but he brushes it off, saying that they are now even since she had helped him before. Later, while waiting for the bus together, Min-soo casually mentions that her mother runs a bathhouse. When the bus arrives, she gets on but notices that Lee Kang stays behind. Curious, she asks why he isn't boarding, and he simply replies that he lives nearby before walking away. However, Min-soo suddenly gets off the bus and returns to him. She tells him that she had something important to say. With genuine emotion, she thanks him for saving her life, admitting that she truly felt like she might die in that tank. Her gratitude is heartfelt, and then she quietly leaves. Meanwhile, Ju-won and Hee-jun share a tense conversation. Hee-jun suggests that they could date again without necessarily getting married, but Ju-won firmly refuses, stating that he only believes in relationships that lead to marriage. Their differing views make it clear that their relationship cannot be rekindled. Back at work, Ju-won checks on Min-soo, expressing concern after hearing about her accident. He encourages her to rely on him if she ever finds herself in trouble again. She agrees politely. During a team dinner organized by Hee-jun, Min-soo ends up burning her hand while grilling food for everyone. Despite her efforts, she is criticized by the director. Feeling hurt and embarrassed, she excuses herself and steps outside. Lee Kang, who had brought ointment for her injury, sees her talking with Ju-won and quietly leaves without giving it to her. The next day, Min-soo returns Lee Kang's jacket and thanks him again. She then directly asks him why he destroyed the memorial. After confirming that he did it, she asks if he was present during the original disaster. His mind flashes back to that day when he was trapped and heard a girl's frightened voice asking him to keep talking so she wouldn't feel alone. He had even sung to comfort her in the darkness. Back in the present, he avoids answering her question and instead responds harshly, accusing her of being selfish for only caring about her own curiosity. His words hurt her, but they also reveal how deeply his past still affects him. Later, Minsu receives the ointment he had left behind through a colleague. Realizing that he had been concerned for her, she becomes thoughtful. Wanting to make things right, she secretly finds his address and goes to meet him at the place listed. She eventually finds him at a club run by Mary. Sensing that it's not a suitable place for her, Lee Kang quickly takes her outside. When he asks why she came, Minsu sincerely apologizes for her earlier behavior, admitting that she tends to think only about herself. In response, Lee Kang explains why he destroyed the memorial. He questions whether building such monuments truly eases the pain of those who lost their loved ones. To him, it felt meaningless, which is why he chose to break it. Surprisingly, Minsu agrees with his reasoning, saying that he might have been right. Their conversation becomes quieter and more reflective. When Lee Kang asks why she had questioned him so intensely before, Minsu avoids giving a direct answer, suggesting that her own reasons are just as complicated. Meanwhile, Juwon discovers an important detail about Lee Kang, that he is the son of one of the workers who died during the mall collapse. Realizing the significance of this connection, Juwon becomes even more curious and begins looking deeper into Lee Kang's past, setting the stage for further revelations. The following day, Lee Kang approaches Juwon with a surprising request. Instead of avoiding responsibility for what he had done, he openly admits that he wants to replace the memorial he destroyed. He asks for permission to build a new monument at the same site. Juwon listens calmly and tells him that such a decision cannot be made immediately. They will need approval from higher authorities before moving forward. Even though the answer is uncertain, Lee Kang seems determined, as if trying to correct something within himself. Not long after, while heading toward the construction site, Lee Kang suddenly collides with Minsu, who is rushing somewhere in a hurry. Slightly irritated, he remarks that she always seems to bump into him and questions whether she ever watches where she's going. Minsu, not missing the opportunity, asks if he came there to see her. He quickly denies it, saying he had other work, brushing off the moment with his usual cold attitude. Later at the office, Juwon returns a lunchbox that Minsu had accidentally left in his car. When she opens it, she realizes that he has carefully prepared food for her. This small, thoughtful gesture brightens her mood and she feels quietly happy. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Hijin invites Lee Kang to have dinner with her. During their conversation, she asks whether Juwon knows about Lee Kang's past, specifically that his father was a construction worker who died at the same site. Lee Kang keeps his response brief, saying that his relationship with Juwon is purely professional and nothing more. The next day at the site, Lee Kang unexpectedly suggests that he and Minsu should eat lunch together. During their meal, he asks about her work, curious about what she actually does. Minsu explains that she creates architectural models which help identify risks and prevent accidents before construction begins. Lee Kang listens and for once acknowledges her effort, telling her that her work is meaningful and important. After lunch, he buys her ice cream. Minsu hesitates, saying it seems expensive, but he casually tells her to just accept it and eat. He adds that sometimes people need something sweet in their lives. The moment feels simple, yet it carries a quiet warmth between them. Curious, Minsu notices a scar on his leg and asks how he got injured. Lee Kang avoids answering and changes the subject, pointing out that her ice cream is melting and she should hurry up and eat it. Later, during a meeting, Minsu is harshly criticized by her superior, leaving her feeling discouraged. Seeing her upset, Lee Kang unexpectedly takes her to his home. Inside, she notices a collection of comic books and asks if he enjoys reading them. He admits that he does, and soon they begin talking about books. As she reads, he watches her with a faint smile, showing a softer side that he rarely reveals. The next day, Juwon asks Minsu for help and sends her along with Lee Kang to choose marble for the new monument. At the store, Minsu carefully examines the materials and rejects the initial options, asking for something better. During this process, Lee Kang expresses his doubts about the purpose of memorials, saying that carving names into stone does not truly change anything. The salesman, however, explains that such monuments exist to preserve memories and give families a place to remember their loved ones. Later, Minsu agrees with the salesman and tells Lee Kang that memorials have meaning. Lee Kang, however, responds differently. He remarks that the man's hardworking hands show that he understands life deeply, implying that such perspectives come from experience. When Minsu says she wishes he hadn't destroyed the original monument, Lee Kang becomes slightly irritated, telling her that regretting the past will not change anything. At the construction site, Lee Kang overhears workers talking about rumors that some victims' bodies might still be buried beneath the ground. This shocks him deeply. Memories of the disaster begin to resurface and he feels unsettled, especially since he has night duty that day. Meanwhile, Minsu falls asleep at her desk while working late. Juwon notices and tells her to go home and rest. As it starts raining heavily, he offers to drop her off. However, Minsu suddenly remembers that Lee Kang is working the night shift at the site. Without explaining much, she quickly leaves, concerned about him. Juwon, watching her reaction and recalling her earlier words about the victims, begins to suspect that she also lost someone in the tragedy. At the site, Lee Kang is patrolling when Minsu arrives in the rain. He seems disturbed, hearing faint voices and becoming convinced that someone is still trapped beneath the structure. Acting impulsively, he begins breaking part of a wall. Minsu tries to stop him, but he pushes her aside, insisting that someone is buried there. As he digs, he uncovers a shoe, triggering a painful memory of a boy whose leg had been crushed during the collapse. Overwhelmed, Lee Kang collapses in shock. When he regains awareness, he notices Minsu and angrily questions why she came. She simply says she was worried about him. Suddenly, the unstable structure begins to collapse again, forcing them both to shout for help. The next day, Juwon arrives at the site and learns about the incident. Instead of focusing on damage, Lee Kang points out that they should be grateful no one was seriously hurt. He even admits that if Minsu hadn't come, he might not have survived. Juwon realizes that her sudden departure the previous night was because she was worried about Lee Kang. To show appreciation, Juwon takes both of them out for breakfast and thanks Minsu for her quick thinking. She explains that the accident happened because the foundation was weak and the rain made conditions worse. Her practical analysis reflects her dedication to safety. Afterward, Lee Kang prepares to leave, saying he worked overtime. Minsu follows him and asks why he was digging so desperately the night before. He admits that he felt as if someone was calling for help, even though he couldn't fully understand it himself. As he tries to walk away, he struggles due to pain in his leg. When Minsu attempts to help, he reacts sharply, telling her not to touch him without permission. Later, Lee Kang tells Juwon that he believes there may still be bodies buried at the site. Juwon admits he has similar suspicions but says they cannot stop construction without solid proof. He asks Lee Kang to find evidence if possible. Juwon also shows concern for Minsu, mentioning that he doesn't like seeing her carry heavy materials alone. He gives Lee Kang a car, suggesting he use it to help her. Outside, Lee Kang hands the keys to Minsu and tells her to drive. As she starts the car, she insists that he wear a seatbelt. When he refuses, she leans over to fasten it herself, accidentally brushing his cheek with her lips. Both of them freeze in surprise, caught off guard by the sudden closeness. To ease the awkwardness, Lee Kang hands her a drink and she quietly smiles. They later visit another location to select stone for the monument. While there, Lee Kang asks Minsu to read an inscription on one of the stones. It expresses the idea of remembering loved ones forever. He comments that such words are difficult to understand and suggests that something simpler might have been better. As they continue discussing the monument, Lee Kang suggests that instead of simply listing names, they should consider who the victims were, their ages, their lives, and design the memorial in a way that reflects their stories. Minsu is impressed by his perspective, realizing that his thoughts go deeper than most people's. At that moment, she reflects on her own loss, remembering her sister and the dreams she once had. For her, memories are all that remain. Elsewhere, Lee Kang's sister calls him in distress. Loan sharks are harassing her at the hospital because he has failed to repay borrowed money. Furious, Lee Kang confronts them and warns them to stay away from his sister. When they threaten her, he loses control and fights them. Meanwhile, Minsu waits for him for an important client meeting regarding the monument. When he doesn't show up, she handles it alone. Later, when he finally arrives, she informs him that the meeting has already been completed. They then visit families of victims who lost loved ones in the tragedy. At one house, no one answers the door. Sensing something is wrong, Lee Kang climbs over the wall and enters. Inside, he finds a woman collapsed on the floor. Minsu follows him and they quickly call for help. The woman is rescued in time. Minsu later reflects that if Lee Kang hadn't acted quickly, no one would have known about her condition. Lee Kang responds with sadness, saying that while the victims are gone, those left behind continue to suffer, often forgotten by society. That night, while patrolling the site, Lee Kang experiences another disturbing moment. The lights go out, and his surroundings become eerily silent. He begins reliving the trauma of being trapped under the rubble. Suddenly, he hears a voice and turns to see what appears to be the same boy from his past. The vision shakes him deeply. At the same time, Minsu reflects on her own past, thinking about her boyfriend who died in the disaster. She believes that if he hadn't come to meet her that day, he might still be alive. The guilt still lingers in her heart. In a haunting memory, Lee Kang recalls following a voice and finding the injured boy during the collapse. As he tried to help him, he noticed the boy's shoe, the same one he had seen earlier before the disaster. When he attempted to move the debris, the boy's injured leg came loose, revealing the severity of his injuries. Back in the present, overwhelmed by these memories, Lee Kang loses control and runs away in fear. In his distressed state, he ends up getting into a fight with strangers on the street who beat him badly. Left unconscious, he is eventually found by Mary, who takes him away, bringing this intense sequence to a close while hinting at the emotional struggles that continue to haunt him. The following day, Min-soo arrives at the construction site and immediately asks about Lee Kang's whereabouts. One of the workers tells her that he had already left earlier without informing anyone. Hearing this, Min-soo assumes that he must have been exhausted from working so hard and probably needed rest. While she's still thinking about this, she notices a group of workers stopping an elderly woman from entering the site and firmly shutting the gate in her face. The woman looks weak, and her condition suddenly begins to worsen. Min-soo quickly rushes toward her, supports her gently and helps her sit down on a nearby bench. She brings her a warm cup of tea to help her recover. The elderly woman, grateful for the kindness, tries to hand Min-soo some money for the tea, but Min-soo refuses politely. The woman insists and says that in this world, if someone does you a favor, you should return it quickly, because you never know if you will meet that person again. After saying this, she begins to walk away, but suddenly collapses on the ground. Without wasting any time, Min-soo takes her to the hospital. While waiting there, she repeatedly tries to call Lee Kang, but his phone is switched off. After some time, she notices the same elderly woman walking out of the hospital. Surprised, she approaches her again. The woman asks Min-soo if she is single. When Min-soo nods, the woman tells her to save her number in her phone. She then adds that even if she passes away, a certain young man will come to repay the kindness on her behalf, describing him as a very good and responsible person who takes care of all her needs. Later, when Lee Kang returns home, he finds Min-soo there talking to Sang-man. She explains that since he didn't come to work again, she got worried and decided to check on him. After that, Lee Kang walks her home. On the way, Min-soo mentions that the memorial service for the elderly woman he once helped has already taken place. She admits she didn't tell him earlier because she thought it might upset him. As they continue walking, Lee Kang suddenly notices a bus approaching. He grabs Min-soo's hand and starts running with her, telling her that it's the last bus heading toward her area. She manages to get on the bus just in time, and he watches quietly as it leaves. Another moment, Ju-won takes Min-soo to a cafe. The building there is visually stunning, and Min-soo becomes fascinated, taking several photographs. Later, when she shows these pictures to her friend Shin notices Ju-won in one of them and comments on how handsome he looks, adding that the way he was looking at Min-soo suggests he might have feelings for her. Min-soo quickly denies this, saying that Ju-won deserves someone much better. Shin reassures her that she is just as worthy as anyone else. The next morning, as Min-soo prepares to leave for work, one of the older women at the site playfully applies lipstick on her, telling her that she should get ready nicely like this. Watching from a distance, Min-soo's mother becomes emotional. She recalls the past, remembering how she used to prepare her other daughter Yan-soo for photo shoots. Overcome with sadness, she walks up to Min-soo, wipes off the lipstick, and tells her not to wear it. When Min-soo asks why, her mother tearfully replies that she doesn't want to lose her as she lost her other daughter. Seeing her mother break down like this makes Min-soo emotional as well. From afar, Lee Kang witnesses this entire scene but quietly leaves without saying anything. Later at work, Lee Kang informs Min-soo that their scheduled meeting has been cancelled. As she turns to leave, he suggests they go somewhere else instead. He takes her to a park where they spend time enjoying different rides. While watching her laugh and have fun, Lee Kang is reminded of a painful memory from the past when they were both trapped under debris. At one point, Min-soo expresses her craving for octopus, saying how much she loves it. Lee Kang jokingly protests, pointing out that octopuses are highly intelligent creatures that can even recognize faces. Hearing this, Min-soo changes her mind and says she would settle for oysters instead. Later, when they go out to eat, Lee Kang orders her favorite dishes. While he steps away to wash his hands, a fruit seller approaches Min-soo and persistently tries to pressure her into buying a pineapple. She politely refuses, but the man continues to argue. When Lee Kang returns and sees this, he becomes angry and slaps the man. Min-soo quickly pulls him away to prevent further trouble. Lee Kang then tells her firmly that just because she is kind doesn't mean she should let others take advantage of her. He warns her that if she keeps being overly nice, people might see her as weak. After this, they sit down and have drinks together. Min-soo ends up drinking too much and becomes intoxicated. While watching Lee Kang eat, she casually mentions that she likes boys who eat carrots, which makes the moment feel lighthearted. As they leave, she suggests continuing to drink and they end up sitting by the riverside. After quietly observing him for a while, Min-soo suddenly leans in and kisses him. Lee Kang is completely taken aback. She thanks him softly and then falls asleep, resting her head on his shoulder. The next morning, Min-soo wakes up to find that they are still sitting by the riverside. Lee Kang notices she's awake and offers his hand, suggesting they take a walk. She accepts and they walk together peacefully. On their way back, she worries about whether she smells like alcohol. Lee Kang teases her, confirming that she does since she drank quite a lot. As they talk, Lee Kang recalls the kiss from the previous night. Min-soo, however, seems unsure and asks if she did anything embarrassing. She apologizes just in case. During their conversation, she reveals that her sister's name is also engraved on the monument. Lee Kang quietly admits that he already knows and shares that his own father also died in that same tragic incident. This revelation creates a deeper emotional connection between them. Later that evening, Min-soo calls Lee Kang and tells him she is waiting outside his house. He rushes out to meet her and asks why she came. They talk casually, and although both claim they have already eaten, she admits she would have liked to have dinner together if he hadn't. So instead, Lee Kang brings ice cream for them to share. While eating, some ice cream gets on Min-soo's face, and Lee Kang gently wipes it away. He notices that she seems sad. When he asks her about it, she points to a billboard nearby and explains that her sister once appeared in that advertisement. She talks about how beautiful and loved her sister was, admitting that she used to feel jealous sometimes but truly loved her deeply. She reflects on how she only fully understood her feelings after losing her. Lee Kang responds by joking that if her sister were alive, he might have had the chance to date a famous actress. Min-soo laughs and says no actress would want someone like him. Their playful exchange brings some lightness back to the moment. Meanwhile, in another situation, Joo-won visits Mr. Young with his mother. It is revealed that Mr. Young once worked with Joo-won's father and feels guilty about the past incident that caused suffering to their family. Because of this, he had taken them in after Joo-won's father passed away. However, tension arises when Mr. Young's son speaks rudely to Joo-won's mother, suggesting they should leave. Joo-won's mother, not wanting to create conflict, decides to step back gracefully, saying she can take care of Mr. Young on her own. Joo-won questions her feelings, but she avoids answering and walks away. Back at Min-soo's home, Lee Kang drops her off. Her mother notices him and asks who he is. Min-soo explains that he is her colleague. Her mother expresses discomfort, saying there is something mysterious about him, as if he is hiding many secrets. Min-soo responds thoughtfully, saying that she too has many secrets within her. Later, Min-soo learns that Joo-won is unwell and didn't come to work. Concerned, she visits his house and brings him food. She quietly takes care of things around the house before leaving. When Joo-won wakes up, he notices everything she has done and finds a note she left behind, which makes him feel touched and appreciated. At the construction site, work comes to a halt due to a supply issue. Hee-jun instructs the manager that the project must be completed quickly and urges him to resolve the problem without delay. The following day, Joo-won arrives at the construction site where tensions are already high. The site manager refuses to cooperate or make any compromises regarding the missing materials. Seeing the situation escalating, Lee Kang steps in calmly and suggests that they should at least continue with whatever work can be done without those materials. At the same time, he subtly hints that the manager should focus on locating the materials that have been deliberately hidden instead of wasting time arguing. While work continues under pressure, Joo-won suddenly feels dizzy as he walks down a staircase at the site. His balance falters and he begins to fall, but Lee Kang quickly reacts and catches him before he can hit the ground. The scene then shifts to Lee Kang's home where his grandmother is carefully treating his injuries. Joo-won is also present, watching quietly as she bandages Lee Kang's chin and advises him to be more cautious since the wound is deeper than it looks. Joo-won feels guilty and apologizes sincerely, blaming himself for what happened. However, Lee Kang brushes it off and tells him not to worry or take his grandmother's words too seriously. He reassures Joo-won that things will work out somehow and that there's no need to stress over it. When Joo-won steps outside, he apologizes to Lee Kang's grandmother as well, saying that Lee Kang got hurt because of him. She responds gently, asking if he actually caused the injury himself. When he says no, she tells him there's no reason for him to feel responsible. Noticing that Joo-won also looks unwell, she hands him some herbal medicine and advises him not to rely on sleeping pills. It becomes clear that she has deep knowledge of traditional herbal remedies. Meanwhile, Min-soo arrives looking for Lee Kang. She questions him about why he wasn't answering her calls. He casually explains that his phone battery had died. Concerned, she asks if he is seriously injured, but he reassures her by jokingly asking if she can see any visible wounds. Still, she admits she was very worried when she heard about the incident. He comforts her and offers to walk her home, but she insists that he should rest instead. Just then, Min-soo receives a call from her friend Shin, who urgently asks her to come over. Lee Kang decides to accompany her. When they arrive, they find Shin arguing with her boyfriend. The situation becomes chaotic, and in the middle of it, Min-soo accidentally falls and loses consciousness. Seeing her collapse, Lee Kang immediately rushes to her side, clearly alarmed. Shin, however, starts asking Min-soo random questions like her name and other basic details. Confused, Lee Kang asks why she is doing that. Shin explains that Min-soo had once suffered memory loss due to an earlier injury, so she is just making sure everything is okay. When Min-soo regains consciousness, she answers correctly, reassuring everyone that her memory is intact. Later, they all gather at Lee Kang's house. Shin curiously asks him about a girl she saw with him at the hospital earlier, assuming she might be his girlfriend. Sang-man quickly clarifies that she is actually his sister. Hearing this, Shin jokingly remarks that it's good news, implying that Lee Kang is still single. He smiles faintly at the comment. As everyone continues chatting, Lee Kang quietly withdraws and sits alone on the stairs, lost in his thoughts. His mind drifts back to painful memories from the past. Min-soo notices his absence and follows him. She gently asks if he is okay. He responds by asking the same question in return, almost as if he is more concerned about her than himself. Then, without warning, he steps closer and hugs her tightly. The sudden gesture shocks Min-soo, and after a brief moment, she pulls away, visibly confused, and leaves. At work, Joo-won later announces in a meeting that the project plan needs to be revised because the materials they received are unsuitable for the site conditions. Taking initiative, Min-soo adjusts the design and confidently presents the updated plan. Soon after, she and Lee Kang set out together to search for the required materials, but they are unable to find them anywhere. Just when things seem hopeless, Lee Kang remembers a place from his past job. He visits his former workplace and meets the manager there. Fortunately, they have exactly the materials needed. Both he and Min-soo feel relieved and happy. Min-soo then takes things a step further by driving a truck herself to transport the materials to the site. When she arrives, the previously stubborn manager is left speechless. Joo-won, who had been waiting anxiously, is relieved to see the materials finally delivered. Min-soo proudly asks Lee Kang to take a photo of her with the truck, and although he teases her, he still takes the picture. Later that evening, Min-soo visits her father's restaurant and excitedly tells him about driving the truck. She shares how it reminded her of him as he used to do the same work. Her father smiles but admits that because of his job, he couldn't spend enough time with his daughters. His tone turns emotional as he reflects on how quickly time passed and how he lost Yan-soo. The mood becomes heavy, but Min-soo lightens it by showing him the photos she took, which bring back smiles. Back at home, Min-soo's mother mentions that the bathhouse boiler has broken down. As Min-soo attempts to fix it, the doorbell rings. When her mother opens the door, Joo-won is standing outside. He is invited in, and upon seeing the broken boiler, he immediately starts repairing it himself. Min-soo feels embarrassed and tells him he doesn't need to do that, but he insists, saying he wants to help since she has helped them so much before. After fixing the boiler, Min-soo's mother invites him to stay for dinner. During the meal, Joo-won expresses how grateful he is to have homemade food again and praises her cooking. His kind words make her very happy. While looking around, he notices a photo of Yan-soo and realizes that Min-soo also lost someone in the tragic incident. On his way out, he tries to ask her about it, but she avoids the topic. Later, Min-soo's mother tells her that she really likes Joo-won and wishes she would consider someone like him instead of Lee Kang, whom she finds unsettling. Min-soo doesn't appreciate this comment. Elsewhere, Lee Kang is having a quiet meal with his grandmother. She reflects on her past, saying that after losing her husband, she spent years hoping things would get better, but they never did. She advises Lee Kang to let go of the past and build a new life, preferably with a good partner who can bring him happiness. Not long after, Min-soo encounters the elderly woman she had helped earlier at the hospital. The woman is delighted to see her again and invites her home. When they arrive, Lee Kang is surprised to see them together. Both he and Min-soo are confused about the connection until the woman cleverly avoids explaining and instead changes the subject. She later asks Lee Kang to drop Min-soo home. On the way, they stop at a playground where Min-soo playfully pushes him on a swing. Their conversation turns to childhood memories, with Lee Kang admitting he remembers very little about his own past. Min-soo describes herself as a quiet and obedient child, which leads to light teasing between them. At one point, Lee Kang gently checks the back of her head and unexpectedly pulls her into another hug. This time, the moment feels softer and more emotional. When they reach the bus stop, Min-soo is about to leave, but Lee Kang stops her, asking her to wait for the next bus. They end up letting several buses pass and spend the entire night talking. During this time, Min-soo opens up about her past, revealing that she suffered memory loss after the incident and carries deep guilt, believing that her actions led someone to their death. She feels as though her life continued while others suffered because of her. Lee Kang listens carefully and reassures her, holding her hand and telling her that it isn't her fault. Eventually, they board a bus together. The next day at the site office, someone accuses Lee Kang of being the son of a corrupt man and claims he is tarnishing the company's reputation. Min-soo immediately defends him, saying his father was also a victim. However, the accusation escalates into a heated argument that turns into a physical fight. Min-soo tries to separate them. Joo-won arrives with Hee-jun just in time and the situation calms down. However, the damage is done and Min-soo leaves without listening to Lee Kang's explanation. He tries to stop her but fails. Later, in a bathhouse, Lee Kang tells Joo-won that if his father's past is a problem, he should just be fired. Joo-won responds firmly, saying he already knows the truth and that Lee Kang's father was not responsible for the collapse. However, the issue reaches higher authorities and there is pressure to remove Lee Kang. Lee Kang later messages Min-soo, asking her to meet him at her father's noodle shop. Meanwhile, Joo-won confesses his feelings to Min-soo, admitting that although he never said it before, he genuinely likes her. Lee Kang overhears this conversation silently. Min-soo is caught off guard and tries to dismiss it, but before the situation becomes more complicated, her father appears. She introduces Joo-won and quickly goes inside. Inside, she asks her father if Lee Kang had come earlier. Her father becomes serious and advises her to stay away from him, saying that Lee Kang carries too many burdens. Min-soo responds emotionally, arguing that she herself is not normal either and questions why she should pretend everything is fine by choosing someone with an easy life. Her father tries to reason with her, but she points out that he himself has never moved on from the past. Unable to continue the conversation, she leaves, carrying her unresolved emotions with her. In the next part of the story, Min-soo goes to Lee Kang's house hoping to meet him and clear the tension between them. However, when she arrives, Sang-man informs her that Lee Kang is not at home. Noticing her worried expression, he gently asks if something has happened between the two of them. He also wonders whether Lee Kang had already apologized to her. Min-soo looks confused and replies that there is no reason for him to apologize. In fact, she feels that she is the one who should be saying sorry. Sang-man encourages her not to delay and tells her that if she truly wants to apologize, she should do it as soon as possible. Then, without explaining much, he takes her somewhere. At the same time, Lee Kang is with Hee-jun. She observes that he seems unusually quiet and burdened, as if something is weighing heavily on his heart. When she asks him about it, he dismisses her concern, saying that nothing is wrong. Hee-jun, however, shares her own experience, mentioning that she too has faced rejection before, just like he might be experiencing now. She tries to connect with him emotionally, but Lee Kang remains distant. Meanwhile, Sang-man brings Min-soo near a bridge, possibly hoping she will find Lee Kang there. Instead, she sees him standing with another woman. The sight makes her heart sink, and without saying a word, she quietly turns around and leaves. Back with Lee Kang, Hee-jun tells him that Joo-won also has feelings for Min-soo, but despite that, she encourages Lee Kang not to give up on her. She even assures him that she is on his side. However, Lee Kang firmly says that the best thing for Min-soo would be for him to step away from her life completely. Soon after, the situation worsens when the site manager officially dismisses Lee Kang from his job as a guard. As he leaves, Min-soo tries to call him, but he ignores her calls, choosing not to respond. Elsewhere, Joo-won visits Min-soo's father at his noodle shop and informs him that the mall involved in the past tragedy is going to be rebuilt. When Min-soo's father hears this, he becomes tense and asks if Min-soo is also working on that project. Joo-won confirms that she is and that they often go to the site together. This revelation shocks her father deeply. Painful memory resurfaces as a flashback unfolds. In the past, Joo-won had attended a press conference related to the mall incident with his father. On their way out, Min-soo's father confronted them, blaming Joo-won's father for the tragedy. Despite Joo-won's attempts to defend him, the accusations were harsh and relentless. Later that night, overwhelmed by guilt and pressure, Joo-won discovers that his father has taken his own life. This traumatic event left a lasting scar on him. Back in the present, Min-soo sits outside the bathhouse with her mother. Her mother begins to talk about her future, suggesting that she should consider dating her boss, Joo-won. She even offers to invite him over and cook a nice meal. Min-soo resists the idea, but her mother insists, saying she wants her daughter to settle down and start a family. Nearby, Lee Kang happens to overhear this conversation. Without saying anything, he quietly walks away, his expression filled with sadness. Min-soo notices him leaving and immediately follows. When he boards a bus, she rushes after him and gets on as well. He looks surprised to see her and asks why she came. She replies that she saw him and couldn't just let him leave like that. Lee Kang then tells her that she should find someone else to work on the monument project, as he will no longer be involved. Confused, Min-soo asks if he is upset with her and apologizes, even though she doesn't fully understand what she did wrong. Lee Kang asks her what exactly she is apologizing for. She explains that she knows the past incident wasn't his fault. However, he responds that his father did make mistakes and that he should have told her the truth earlier. When Lee Kang gets off the bus, Min-soo follows him again. He tells her to go back, but she refuses and questions his cold behavior. She even asks if he won't walk her home anymore like before. Lee Kang tells her to stop staying out late and advises her to spend more time with Juwon, saying he is a good person. This statement frustrates Min-soo, and she firmly replies that she will decide for herself who she wants to be with. As she walks away, she suddenly turns back and calls out to him, asking why he had shown her affection before, why he hugged her and held her hand if he was just going to push her away now. Lee Kang says nothing, but tears form in his eyes as he walks away in silence. Meanwhile, Min-soo stands at the bus stop, recalling all the moments they shared together, and breaks down in tears. In another development, Mr. Young visits Lee Kang's grandmother regarding a piece of land she owns. He offers her a generous amount of money as he needs the land for a project. However, she refuses, saying she has already promised it to someone else. The next day, Min-soo learns that Lee Kang has been fired from his job. Shocked and worried, she tries to call him again, but he still does not answer. Meanwhile, Lee Kang is offered a job on a ship with good pay and he accepts it, seeing it as a way to leave everything behind. Min-soo then goes to meet his grandmother and shares her concerns. The grandmother explains that Lee Kang is not angry but is intentionally distancing himself because he believes he will only bring pain to others. She urges Min-soo not to let him slip away so easily. Later, Hae-jun meets Min-soo and tells her that she had tried to convince Lee Kang to continue working on the monument even after losing his job, but he refused. She believes Min-soo is the only one who can reach him, especially since both of them share a connection to the same tragic past. Memories begin to connect in Min-soo's mind, and she realizes that she had seen Lee Kang during the disaster long ago. Determined, she rushes to his house but learns that he has already left for the ship. Without wasting time, she runs to the seaside. At the harbor, Lee Kang is preparing to depart. Min-soo calls out to him desperately, but upon seeing her, he quickly disappears inside the ship, convincing himself that leaving is the best choice for her sake. Later, his grandmother visits Min-soo and encourages her not to give up, reminding her that life is filled with both good and bad times and one must learn to endure both. Suddenly, her health worsens and Min-soo rushes her to the hospital. At the hospital, it is revealed that she has brain cancer. She has been avoiding treatment because the surgery might cause memory loss. Lee Kang has no idea about her condition because she had forbidden anyone from telling him. Min-soo insists that he must be informed, as hiding it would only hurt him more in the future. Eventually, Lee Kang is told the truth and rushes back. When he learns how serious her condition is, he is devastated. He struggles to process the possibility of losing her. Outside the hospital room, he encounters Min-soo but avoids her again. She follows him and tries to check on him, but he pushes her away, saying he is fine. Later, when he returns home, he finds her waiting for him outside. She insists on talking and brings up their connection during the past incident, asking if it truly means nothing to him. Lee Kang, overwhelmed, refuses to engage and tells her to leave. Heartbroken, she walks away in tears while he watches her from above, hiding when she looks back. On her way home, Min-soo meets her father, who warns her to leave her job at the site. She refuses, saying she has no problem continuing her work. The next day, she waits outside Lee Kang's house again and boldly tells him that he should also start following his heart instead of running away. She takes him to an ice cream shop, where she notices a wound on his hand and gently applies a bandage. She then makes a heartfelt promise that she will keep coming to see him again and again until her feelings for him fade, no matter how long it takes. Meanwhile, Lee Kang admits his grandmother to the hospital and takes care of her. Although he dislikes the hospital food, he feeds her patiently. Soon, Min-soo arrives with canned peaches, lifting the mood slightly. Friends gather around, bringing warmth and comfort. During a conversation, it is revealed that Lee Kang suffered severe trauma after being trapped with a dead body for days during the disaster. This revelation shocks Min-soo deeply. In a flashback, we see him desperately telling rescuers that someone else was still alive, only for them to discover a lifeless body instead. Later, Min-soo confronts him again, refusing to leave. She tells him that when she was alone and struggling, he stayed by her side. Now that he is the one in pain, she will not abandon him. As she moves closer, he grabs her hand tightly and warns her to leave, saying that if she doesn't, he may never let go. Instead of pulling away, Min-soo embraces him. At that moment, all his suppressed emotions finally break free and Lee Kang begins to cry. In the following scene, Lee Kang notices that Min-soo has fallen asleep while sitting upright. She looks exhausted, her head slowly tilting as if she might fall at any moment. Gently, he reaches out and supports her face with his hand so she won't lose balance. His touch wakes her and she opens her eyes, slightly startled, but then softens when she realizes it's him. She asks him if he slept well, even though she is the one who had been dozing off. He looks at her with concern and questions why she didn't go back home. Min-soo explains that she didn't want him to wake up alone and feel abandoned. Her words clearly move him. He then decides to walk her back, but Min-soo refuses, insisting she can take the bus instead. She tells him he should go back and rest properly. Before they part ways, Lee Kang thanks her sincerely, appreciating her quiet support. Soon after, Lee Kang goes to meet Mr. Young to finalize the deal of selling his grandmother's land. As part of the agreement, he asks for permission to return to work at the construction site, and Mr. Young agrees, allowing him to start again soon. When Lee Kang arrives at the site, his friend is overjoyed to see him back. However, he also shares an unsettling rumor circulating among the workers. People claim strange things are happening there, as if the place is haunted by memories of the past. Hearing this brings back painful memories for Lee Kang. In a flashback, he recalls desperately calling out for help during the accident and then noticing a young boy lying unconscious nearby. The memory overwhelms him, and in the present, he suddenly feels suffocated by it. His breathing becomes unstable and he rushes outside, unable to handle the emotional weight. Later, in a calmer moment, Lee Kang and Min-soo share a meal together. Watching her eat, he smiles and tells her she looks adorable when she eats so happily. Afterward, he walks her home, enjoying the quiet comfort of her presence. The next day at work, Lee Kang informs Min-soo that he has resumed his job at the site. He then asks her to meet him after work, hinting that he wants to spend more time with her. That evening, Min-soo goes to his house, but he isn't there yet. While waiting in his room, she remembers that his sister had asked her to find his medication. She begins searching and eventually finds the tablets. She takes one with her before leaving. Later, she hands the medicine to his sister and firmly tells her not to hide anything from her, no matter how difficult the truth might be. After this, Min-soo and Lee Kang visit the home of one of the victims from the tragic incident. The woman they meet has remarried, but hearing her late husband's name still brings tears to her eyes. It reminds them both how deep and lasting the pain of that event still is. On their way back, Min-soo gently brings up the past, telling Lee Kang that carrying the burden of that tragedy must be incredibly hard. He responds by asking if it isn't difficult for her as well. She explains that she lost many of her memories after the incident, so she doesn't remember everything clearly. Her words create a quiet understanding between them. Later, as they stand at a bus stop in the cold, Lee Kang tries to give her his coat. She refuses at first, saying he'll feel cold instead. In response, he keeps the coat on but wraps his arms around her from behind, covering her with it and keeping her warm. She jokingly complains that he's heavy, but he just smiles, enjoying the closeness. He even comments that she smells nice, likely because of her mother's bathhouse. Soon after, Min-soo falls ill with a cold. At work, her colleague notices her sneezing and insists she go home and rest. Once home, Lee Kang calls her, scolding her lightly for not dressing warmly. She reassures him she has taken medicine and will recover soon. When he asks if she wants to eat anything, she admits she feels like having ice cream, though she doesn't have any at home. Later that night, Lee Kang shows up outside her house with ice cream. When she doesn't answer her phone, he climbs up through the window to reach her room. Surprised, she lets him in. When her mother calls out, Min-soo quickly hides him under the blanket. After her mother leaves, Lee Kang emerges and kisses her. She worries he might catch her cold, but he playfully says it's fine if it happens. After spending a little time together, he quietly leaves through the window. Min-soo smiles warmly as she eats the ice cream he brought. The next day, Min-soo's mother discovers documents related to the construction site and becomes suspicious. She later confronts her husband, who admits he knew about Min-soo working there but couldn't stop her. Her mother is devastated, unable to move on from the loss of Yan-soo, and expresses deep regret. Meanwhile, Lee Kang and Min-soo visit the mall site again. Being there triggers painful memories for him, and he quickly takes her away from the place. Later, while shopping for a gift for his sister, he tries to lighten the mood. At home, Min-soo's mother confronts her angrily about working at the site. The argument escalates and painful words are exchanged. In a moment of anger, Min-soo suggests that if she had been with Yan-soo that day, she might have died too. This deeply upsets her mother, who slaps her and tells her to leave the house. Hurt and crying, Min-soo leaves and goes to her father's shop. Lee Kang finds her there and gently comforts her, covering her with his jacket. Seeing that she's injured, he carries her and takes her away. When she says she doesn't want to go home, he offers to stay with her. They go to Shin's house, where she rests. Later, when she wakes up and doesn't see him, she feels uneasy, but then notices him standing outside. When she asks why he didn't stay inside, he admits that he was afraid of losing control of his emotions if he remained close to her. He reassures her that he won't leave her alone. They share a heartfelt conversation about their pain and the past. Lee Kang tells her that if the accident hadn't happened, their lives might have been very different, but now they must try even harder to find happiness. He wipes her tears and kisses her gently. In another scene, they are eating together with friends. There's a light-hearted moment when someone jokes that Min-soo likes boys who eat carrots, teasing Lee Kang. Later, at the site, Min-soo surprises Lee Kang. They spend time together and he wraps a scarf around her, taking care of her. She happily remarks that she feels rich because of how much he cares for her. As they talk, Min-soo mentions visiting another victim's family where the mother still believes her son is alive. She finds it strange and heartbreaking. Lee Kang admits that he, too, sometimes feels like he sees and hears people who are no longer alive. A flashback reveals the traumatic moment when the boy he tried to save died in front of him. The memory still haunts him deeply. In the present, Min-soo shares that she often has dreams where everything begins differently but always ends with Yan-soo dying. These recurring dreams reflect her unresolved grief. Finally, Lee Kang gently tells her to go home and take care of her mother. He reminds her that he has already lost his own mother, so he understands the pain of absence. He encourages her not to distance herself from her mother and to cherish the chance she still has to be with her. In the next part of the story, Min-soo and Lee Kang go together to visit the mother of a victim who still believes that her son is alive. The woman lives in quiet denial, holding on to hope despite the tragedy that took place. As they approach the house, Lee Kang suddenly becomes uneasy. The moment he sees it, memories begin flooding back into his mind. He recognizes it instantly. It is the home of the boy who had been trapped with him during the mall incident, the same boy who died right in front of his eyes. Even after the accident, Lee Kang had come here multiple times, trying to gather the courage to speak the truth, but he was never able to go through with it. This time, however, things are different. When they receive no response at the door, Min-soo quietly writes a note and leaves it behind. In the note, she mentions that she has something important to say about the woman's son, Seong. Lee Kang notices what she has written and looks at her with concern, questioning her intentions. That is when Min-soo finally reveals something she had been hiding for a long time. She tells him that besides losing her sister in the accident, she also lost someone else, her first love. He had come to the mall that day to meet her because she had called him there, and he ended up dying in the tragedy. Hearing this, Lee Kang is completely stunned. He had no idea she was carrying such a heavy burden of guilt. Not long after, while working at the construction site, Lee Kang discovers human remains buried beneath the ground. Shocked, he takes photographs as evidence and shows them to Mr. Young, insisting that construction must stop immediately. However, Mr. Young refuses to listen, prioritizing the project over everything else. Frustrated, Lee Kang turns to Ju-won, reminding him that he had asked for proof. Now that proof exists, there are actual bodies buried there. Ju-won promises to do whatever he can to help, but the situation remains tense. Soon, a full skeleton is uncovered at the site. As workers attempt to remove it, Lee Kang intervenes, trying to stop them from treating it carelessly. In the chaos, a heavy object nearly falls on him, but Min-soo reacts quickly and pushes him out of harm's way. He falls to the ground, shaken. Although he insists that he is fine, his trembling hands reveal how deeply affected he is. Meanwhile, Lee Kang's sister is going through the gifts he had sent her when she receives a call about his medical test results. At the same time, Min-soo urges Lee Kang to go to the hospital for a proper checkup, especially since he had shown signs of weakness earlier, including dizziness and nosebleeds. However, he brushes it off, insisting he just needs rest. Later, when Min-soo goes to his house, she notices something alarming. Many of his clothes are stained with blood. While looking around, she also finds a phone and a keychain she had once made for Seong. At that moment, everything becomes clear to her. The boy Lee Kang had been trapped with during the accident was Seong, the same person she had lost. The realization overwhelms her and she breaks down in tears. When Lee Kang comes out after bathing, she hides her emotions and prepares to leave. But he stops her, asking her to stay a little longer. He admits that he feels anxious and doesn't want to be alone. Then, in a moment of vulnerability, he confesses his feelings. He tells her that he loves her deeply and that he feels an urgency to say it now, as if he might never get another chance. Later, as she watches him sleeping, Min-soo recalls the past. She remembers how he had pushed her to safety during the accident, telling her to escape first. As she got out, debris fell and trapped him inside while she lost consciousness outside. Thinking about it now, she feels overwhelmed with guilt, believing she should not have left him behind. Unable to bear the weight of these emotions, she quietly leaves, crying. The next day, Lee Kang realizes that she has discovered the truth. He tries to contact her, but she avoids him. Eventually, he finds her outside Seong's house. She confronts him, asking why he hid the truth about Seong from her. He explains that he didn't want to hurt her further. Min-soo insists on telling Seong's mother everything, but Lee Kang hesitates, believing it won't change anything now. At that moment, the mother comes outside and invites them in. She recognizes both of them. Lee Kang finally gathers the courage to speak, telling her that he was with her son in his final moments and that Seong had asked him to apologize. Hearing this, the mother breaks down in tears. She regrets not listening to him when he had come earlier. Min-soo also apologizes and returns Seong's belongings. On their way back, Lee Kang tries to hold her hand, but she pulls away, still struggling with her emotions. He begs her not to leave him, holding her tightly. She asks if he is angry with her for what happened. He reassures her that it was never her fault and expresses his desire to spend his life with her. However, she admits that seeing him brings back painful memories and she walks away. Meanwhile, more skeletons are discovered at the site, increasing tension and fear among everyone involved. Despite everything, Lee Kang asks Min-soo not to distance herself from him until their work on the memorial is complete, and she agrees. Later, Lee Kang undergoes medical tests, but during an MRI scan he panics and runs out, unable to endure the confined space due to his trauma. The doctors later reveal that his condition is serious. His liver is failing and the medication he has been taking is worsening his health. A transplant is necessary for his survival. When his sister suggests this, he bluntly asks if he will die without it. She breaks down, unable to answer directly, but her reaction says everything. Despite his condition, Lee Kang continues working with Min-soo on the memorial. They spend time together, supporting each other. However, he chooses not to tell her about his illness at first, fearing it will only cause her more pain. Eventually, she finds out. When he collapses outside her house after trying to tell her, she rushes him to the hospital. When he regains consciousness, he learns that she stayed by his side the entire time. She confronts him for hiding the truth, crying and expressing her fear of losing him. He comforts her, asking her not to cry. Determined to save him, Min-soo even offers to donate part of her liver. However, his sister explains that she is not eligible. Still, Min-soo refuses to give up. At the same time, new information comes to light proving that Lee Kang's father had been falsely accused in the past. Min-soo helps clear his name, restoring his honor. Eventually, a match for the liver transplant is found, Sang-man. He insists on donating despite the risks. Lee Kang initially refuses, feeling guilty, but after much persuasion he accepts, realizing how much the people around him want him to live. After receiving compensation related to his father's case, Lee Kang jokingly tells Min-soo that he now has money and asks how they should spend it. She playfully suggests staying in an expensive hotel. They go there together, sharing a peaceful and intimate moment, free from their struggles even if just for a short time. The next day, however, reality returns. His surgery faces complications and fear returns. Later, as they sit together, they openly talk about their feelings, memories, and misunderstandings. They confess how long they have loved each other. In an emotional moment, Lee Kang collapses again and Min-soo is overwhelmed with fear. However, time passes and eventually he undergoes surgery successfully. After recovering, life slowly begins to return to normal. His sister continues her medical work and Lee Kang begins to look forward to a future where he can live peacefully. In the final moments, Lee Kang reflects on everything he has been through. Looking at Min-soo, he realizes that he wants to live not just for himself but for her as well. Min-soo expresses her love and he responds in kind, grateful that he is still alive and able to be with her.